this week we return to our sorority slasher season with Sorority House Massacre.
Yeah, I think we did tease this one last week when we did our we teased it in our kind of top 3 horrors. You mentioned that you'd seen this one. And I think you mentioned a lot of points around it being a bit similar to like Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween. And I watched this one today and I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like a jumble of these kind of, I guess, sorority horror kind of slasher films, but it felt like it took a lot of ideas or just moments from other horrors, even though it's quite a short film. It's only 74 minutes long. So it's quite like breezy, but it feels like it tries to pack a lot of ideas into a very short amount of time.
Yeah, definitely. There's quite a lot going on, like you said, in this quite a pacey runtime as well. It feels like it builds a fair bit to it, and then it really does start to the bodies start to pile up quite quickly. Before we get into it, I will obviously do my usual spiel of letting people know that if they want to join the Cast Me to Hell sorority, then all you've got to do is hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. It really does help the show grow. So I thought that this was actually out a little earlier than it was, but it was actually 1986. So
yes.
The golden ages of slasher had kind of been and gone. I think that was 1978 to 1984. So this is actually a little bit later than I expected. When I was watching it, I was thinking, okay, it's probably got to be right slap bang in the middle of that, like 83, 84. I believe it was originally developed because of how successful the Slumber Party Massacre was, and that was in 1982. And have you seen the Slumber Party Massacre?
No, I've never seen Slumber Party Massacre because I read that this was almost almost technically a kind of like a spin-off of the ideas that had come from Slumber Party Massacre. I'm not sure. Actually, no, the first one. No, I've seen the first one because it's with the
the driller
drill
kind of
yeah. I always mix it because I'd watch this one, but I always mix it up in my head thinking it is Driller Killer, but I've seen the first Slumber Party Massacre.
Yeah, it's a film that is quite. I remember it being quite tongue in cheek, good level of gore. I think it's something. It was entirely kind of written and directed by a woman, which was quite ahead of its time at the when it came out. And I can't remember who exactly wrote and directed it. But this one is also written by Carol Frank. So I think they've tried to. I don't want to say piggyback on the success of the Slumber Party Massacre, but it's got a similar title. They've kind of, I think it has a similar-ish poster, if I recall correctly. So they've definitely tried to do a little something there.
They've tried to continue on with the success of that film, and including, I guess, going with a female director. I looked it up. It's Amy Holden Jones who directed Slumber Party Massacre, the original.
Okay.
And then, yes, we've got Carol Frank who directed all of these Sorority House Massacre films. But it's got a similar kind of thing, but oddly kind of not exactly what you see. So the poster for Sorority House Massacre, well, all of these tend to have several different random ones, but you've got one here, Sorority House Massacre, who'll survive the final exam. And then it's got a guy kind of peeping in through the window of a sorority girl kind of thing, which I can't necessarily, like, though it is part of many of these films, I can't actually say that one matches up that well with this one, because it's not really exactly, it doesn't really have much time for that element of the film much.
Yeah, it's an odd one, because I know last week we spoke about the house on Sorority Row, how the poster for that and the tagline made it sound a bit gorier than it was got to be, and a bit more like Last House on the Left, whereas this one does definitely give that weird voyeuristic Halloween-esque element to it. I don't know who will survive the final exam, because I don't recall if they ever actually speak about doing exams at all. I'm pretty sure they've graduated.
I don't even remember them. Yeah, I don't even remember them really even mentioning college, like actually being in lectures or anything like that. Like, it's not really an element of this film. Whereas, I was going to say there are other ones within our sorority season which very much kind of focus on they're in college and they're in classes in naughty sorority boys and girls and different houses and things like that. Whereas this one, I feel like that is very much a backwards part, apart from obviously our main girl Beth. Geff, that standard female name, Geff. Beth is kind of she's joining into this, like she's come to the house, hasn't she? She's a bit of an outsider. But yeah, the actual part of the actual like learning is never really a part that I found I remember really popping up greatly in this film. It is much more about Beth mainly just following what Beth does, and an occasional little bit with the others, but most of it is mainly Beth or Bobby, who is the kind of the brother the Michael Myers, as he travels his way to Beth, basically.
It is effectively Halloween if it was told by memory. It's so similar to it. It has a very Euro horror opening. So you mentioned when we spoke about our kind of top 3 sorority slashers, you mentioned about how this one does have this kind of strange dream element to it. And this weird
there's a psychic telekinetic kind of link between the brother and the sister here,
which I found had like a strange Argento-esque element to it, where they could like sense where each other was and they could pick up on each other's movements. I make it sound like it's more fleshed out than it actually is, but it opens up with very classic Euro horror opening where a child walks home to find something is happening at their house, particularly upstairs, and you're like, okay, like the dad's laying pipe and the kid's got to walk in on it. It really reminded me of Nightmares in a Damaged Brain, where it's like it has this thing and it's like recurring childhood trauma that they've experienced and how it bleeds back into their day-to-day life. So that it kind of set itself up very weird with this odd soundtrack as well. It was very strange.
It has a little while. It does feel like a little while to get to the actual main story, because we spend so long in this first little section though with that story as a kid, but then also when she has flashes when she shows up at the sorority house, she has these flashes, like you see the little girls Nightmare on Elm Street. And she has those elements of like going through the house and seeing bleeding candles and like ceilings, and bits like that we see like bit by bit. But obviously at the start here, it's all very kind of what's going on. She walks into a room, something's under the bed, and it's just like disappears and things like that. And you're like, what's going on? And it leaves you in this very like something's happened, even though it tells you that Bobby killed her. It's not really like, I didn't find it wasn't fully shown to you early in the beginning of the film, like exactly what had happened. But then you quickly get the idea, oh yeah, it's just Mr. Bobby, as his thing, is the one hunting down her family, is the one who hunted down. And we get more about that aspect of her being a little girl, but who the other little girls are, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which at the start I thought was just a throwaway, like, oh, you just added little girls because it's just Nightmare on Elm Street you're ripping off.
Yeah. But when I was watching it, because I was under the impression that this was like 1983, I was like, oh my God, they've got the little girls and the creepy like entrance into the house, and they've done some stuff that's like really before Nightmare on Elm Street. And then I googled it, and it was like 1986, and I was like, oh,
it's like, where?
He just literally watched Nightmare on Elm Street.
I was gonna say, like, in our top 3, like our recommended episode, I made the mistake of thinking that this actually come before like House on Sorority Row and things like that, when I actually know it came way after. It was a blender of ideas that had already been done. It's not exactly got a huge amount of originality in this film.
It struck out to me just how similar it is to Halloween. So you have Bobby Hawkins, or whatever his name is. You have him in this secure mental facility, and they're doing these brain scans on him to find out what's going on. And they're like, half of the time you won't get anything from him because like he just shows as being unresponsive. And then it's when the sister goes back to the childhood home that it kind of sets off this thing inside of him, and he just decides to break out. Unlike, the Chad Michael Myers, he doesn't break out in the middle of the night. He just does a run for it in the middle of the day.
Oh yeah,
Somehow climbs over a fence.
Just basically gets over a wall. It doesn't seem like it's very hard at all for him to escape. I'm not going to lie.
Well,
it seems really easy once he's outside the building. I mean, it seems like he's just like, I'll just jump over this and off I go.
Well, they kind of he jumps over this fence, which has a little bit of barbed wire on it, climbs it very easily, and then as he jumps down, it pans to this sign which says Piroga wherever secure facility, and I was like, not really that secure. It's just somebody could just run from their cell.
Minimally secure.
Low level guy watching.
For someone who is murdered an entire family, basically, as a boy, very very minimally secure. I mean, that dude gets out of there very easily, and
he keeps trying to get out as well.
Yeah, and before you know,
he's keeps trying, and they're just just send one guy in after him. Send one guy in to stop him.
That's all it takes.
And they put a plaster over his mouth when they tie him down. I don't know if you noticed that. The editing of this film is really quick. So
because he's such a chatty character.
He's so chatty, they put a small plaster on his mouth. It makes no sense. He can open his mouth and be fine.
Yeah, that plaster would just come straight off.
Yeah, it's an odd little setup,
It is. I mean, we've also got the odd. I mean, and it's not to completely on the film. As I said in the last one, there were actually elements that I do actually like about some of this and some of the Bobby character and the childhood trauma link between the two of them. There is a part of it I kind of like in this film, but there are many glaring things that just generally feel like they've taken an element from a different film and not really thought about whether it makes perfect sense within this film. Including, there's the odd one of the sorority house being their childhood home.
Yeah.
Which just seems, I don't know, it just seems so I mean, I get it. They are just houses on a certain place, but it's just the coincidental nature of the fact that she is now in a sorority house that specifically turns out to have been her childhood home. And now here she is showing up to it, and her memory doesn't allow her, basically is blocked out these bad memories. So she doesn't remember that this is a childhood home, but she gets these flashes every time she goes around the house, like we do at the beginning of the film. When she walks through the house, she's getting flashes of as she enters the house for the first time, she gets all of those flashes that we talked about of different rooms, but she doesn't know what they are or why she feels so uneasy. And it's not that it's not allowing for again, I think those memory sequences are quite cool little additions to the film in this odd kind of Nightmare on Elm Street giallo kind of different styles of different ways that the nightmares can affect her. And I don't mind the flashes kind of parts, but it still just seems like such an overly coincidental thing that fuck it, just make it this was her home, then we'd have to locate anywhere else to film.
Use the same set, fuck it, do it.
Yeah,
well,
that'll do.
Some of those memories when they come through and some of the dreams that she has are actually really quite cool, I thought, such as she often sees him walking towards her carrying this I think it's a buck knife, which is the same knife that Ghostface uses. So it's quite a cool knife. And he always stabs through something, stabs through a mirror, and you can see the knife coming through and the blood dripping down. And then there's one part where I think he stabs through the floor and the knife goes through and there's blood. And it is quite cool. It gets you thinking maybe this is going to be actually really interesting, and they've got to do some weird. They got to go to some weird stuff with this story. Instead, they're just nah, let's just do Halloween.
Yeah. Well, let's just have we have a quite kind of just long kind of progression of just kind of getting to know Beth as she settles into the sorority house, and the occasional scene of Bobby traveling on his way, basically when he goes into the hunting store or the hardware store or whatever it is, and he walks in and basically just very quickly manages to just get a knife and just stab the guy in the stomach, just that's it, that'll do.
Well, the hardware store was literally when it clicked with me that I was they're just doing Halloween. Michael Myers breaks out of the sanatorium, and then he gets the classic jumpsuit from the car mechanic, steals a little motor to go around with, and then he goes to the hardware store where he gets the mask. And I was thinking, oh, is he going to get like is he going to get a Leonard Nimoy mask and start walking around with that? But I don't mind he just walks in, gets a knife, and just kills the old dude. You know, up until this point, I was like, I'm quite vibing with this. It's quite like interesting.
Well,
there is this weird music, and there is this weird like dream sequences, and there's some weird stuff happening. I was quite vibing with it.
Yeah. And then it gets more of the stuff like I mentioned in the last one, some of the odd, like you've got some of these odd moments where as Beth starts to kind of settle in with her life on the campus and her life in the sorority, where she's constantly mainly just the character who's just sat quietly while the other girls are like having fun and enjoying themselves. And then it has that odd, very 80s montage of getting dressed up.
The montage.
But just literally like it is literally, like I said, it's like Pretty Woman or something like that, except we've got tits in between each shot of it. Like it's literally it's literally like porno version.
Yeah, well, we spoke last week when we were talking about House on Sorority Row, and we were like, there's always going to be a little bit of like side boob or tit. That's what you kind of expect it when it's going to be a sorority film. And I think if I recall correctly, that's why Slumber Party Massacre worked quite well, because you expected it and you never really got it. They played with your subversions around that.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is just for like, all right, get your fucking babs out. Get trying on the queen bitch's clothes. I was surprised that the queen bitch of the sorority, Vicky, I think she was called Vicky as well. Christy or Christine, something like that. I was surprised that she exited. I thought she was going to be hanging around a bit longer and she was going to die. So it was interesting that happened. But did you notice the soundtrack during the weird montage where they're trying her clothes on? I'm 90% sure that it was the chord progression for Jump by Van Halen. It was like a little bit slow and a bit more spaced out, but it was the same chords as Jump, and it just really stuck in my head as being, it's like do 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 do.
It probably was.
Is.
I mean, a lot of these I have found tend to use at least one kind of quite popular song of around the 80s kind of in the film kind of thing. I've had a few of them where songs have popped up with this season that we were doing, where I've been like, oh, okay. I don't know why. It is an 80s horror, so I should expect there to be some 80s songs maybe in there. But some of these ones sometimes are a bit cheaper, so you don't always get like a full-on actual song. You get more like just like a little bit of a, well, I'd say orchestral, but that would be way too expensive as well.
That'd be too expensive. It's
mainly just some bloke who's just bought a keyboard and just puts it on electronica and just does that.
Some guy who makes porn, and they're like, all right, we need you to do the soundtrack for our horror movie. Like,
yeah. I mean, to be fair, I basically just described how John Carpenter made the Halloween soundtrack, so that's how he pretty much did the original. So yeah, it's not a bad thing, but yeah, jumping in with some actual like popular of the time might cost a little bit of money music is just like, oh, I didn't expect to hear that.
Yeah, just get a little something going. What else is good is when they kind of, as they progress, they get to the point where they find the knife in the fireplace that he'd hidden, and they start talking about this murder that happened in this house.
The thing I found weird about the knife in the fireplace is the fact that the knife in the fireplace is just kind of just there at the back of the fireplace. Like, you can tell that many fires, yes, have been done, but it still just seems to just be like there in the back.
Yeah.
Like, not like, oh, we're going to remove a brick from the fireplace and here's the weapon behind it. No, it's just there. You can just see like the outline of the edge of the thing. I was like, that's clearly a knife. If anyone in the, what has it been, like 20 years or
20
something?
Years,
yeah. Anyone in the last 15 to 20 years, no one's been like, is that a fucking knife in the fireplace?
And nobody's used the fireplace. They're just like, I'm perfect. I'm not cold at all. I'm too hot, if anything.
Nobody's So I just find it a bit bizarre that instead of it being like, oh, we find it in the pipe by like pulling it out of the chute or pulling it from like a brick, instead it's just like it basically pans over the fireplace, and there, just in the middle of ash, is just like a knife that's just sat there that looks like it's just dented into a wall or something. Because obviously he goes and gets it later on, just like takes it from there, takes it out of the ash.
Finders keepers.
There it is. It's still here.
It reminded me of when a few people we know used to live together in Cheltenham, and when they moved out, they'd somehow come across this like short sword. I don't know how exactly they found it, but they didn't want to move it because they got a really bad vibe from it, so they just left it in the house somewhere. I think they like hid it in the back of a crawl space. So in like 20 years time, when somebody's looking, they're just going to find like a short sword. So it's not, it's not out of the realms of possibility.
Not out of the realms.
You could find a murderer's knife. But then they do they hypnotize her, because it's interesting that this film, we said about it doesn't really do too much of the scholarly stuff, where they're in lessons, but it actually does. Now I'm remembering it, because it effectively does the scene where Laurie is in class and she looks out the window and she sees Michael. They have the scene where Beth she's in a class and they're learning about psychology, because all of the girls in this sorority are psychology majors. And she looks out the window and she sees Bobby there covered in blood, and it's like the dream sequence, the memories coming back into her psychosis, psychiatry, psychology, whatever.
You're right.
So it does have some of it, because then we get the scene later where they're talking about like, what is this dream that you've been having? Oh, it's a knife. It's like the fear of sex. It's all of this sort of stuff, which then later leads into the hypnosis, where they have a great idea of hypnotizing someone.
Yeah. There's still no final exam though. The poster still doesn't make any sense. But
there's a film called
as they
Final
tend not
Exam,
to.
which I think came out in 1981, or it came out in the middle of it. I'm being relatively confident it came out in the golden age, and they were like, oh, we've got this amazing fucking tagline, and they're going to call this film Final Exam, and then they're like, yeah, there was already one called that. It had a better tagline, and they're just committed to it. Like, all right, we've got that. We've got somebody. So the woman who did the front cover, or the poster for it, isn't actually in the film. So maybe they were like, we're going to call this Final Exam, and then never got around to doing it. Found out there was already a film. They'd been beaten to the post. Because there is no final exam in this. There's no graduation. It's just Halloween. Halloween from memory. We've got Halloween at home,
because to be fair, it generally does not take very long before, like, we go through this motion of them, some of those scenes of her remembering, having these nightmare sequences about her brother. Like when she's in bed, we get like, I feel like 2 or 3 of them where she's just in bed. And then just gets these like, he's coming closer, or he's going to attack me, or like there he is, like as a child, here he comes. And then, it really, like, we get a few of those. We get her kind of slowly getting in with the girls and stuff like that as they go through their normal college day kind of thing. But it doesn't take long to get to that kind of main like night when they start getting basically attacked. Like it's not, as I said, it's not a long film, so they don't have much time to film before. Not that that's a decision. I mean, they're the ones that wrote it and directed it. They could have made it longer and added more if they wanted to. Doesn't feel like it needed to be like such a short film, but they decided that's all they need.
So it's Andy, which is the first.
Andy's the one who died. Yeah, I was going to say, because you said about the hypnotizing, but that comes. I was going to say that we get that kind of after Andy's death.
Yeah, I mean, Andy was such a fucking annoying character. He was an absolute fucking prank. And there's a bit in it where his whole prank is to like pin someone down. I'm like, that's your joke, is to try and force yourself on your friend. Like, that's the weirdest fucking thing ever.
I mean, to be fair, the whole there's a very questionable nature in a lot of these sorority films about like basically how men act around like girls in these situations. Whether that's obviously the playfulness of the classic, and this is in comedies or horror, but the playfulness of the classic, like I'm going to make you have to take your towels off and run naked.
I go on a panty raid, you know.
Yes, that kind
I
of thing.
steal your underwear whilst you shower, you know, and it's Animal House. That's the kind of vibe, isn't it?
Or literally just be like, playful, you know, I'll hold you down and we'll mess around like we're going to have sex. Like that's a perfectly normal and acceptable thing to do in this situation, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll stick my dick through the hole in the wall.
Yeah, I will peep my head in and show up like when you're naked in your room, and I'll just peep my head in because that's perfectly acceptable, isn't it?
It's the 80s, you know, it's fine.
It's the 80s, yeah. It's a little slap on the wrist, you naughty little fella, and off you go.
Yeah, you cheeky boy. You become a college, you know, you become a campus legend for doing so.
Yes, that's what happens. If you're listening and you're currently in college in America or you're in university in the UK and you think that these are funny hijinks that you should do everything, don't. It normally means that you'll end up in some kind of prison or some kind of way that you'll be the one that gets a little penis popped in your face. You'll be the one that gets held down in prison. That's the way it's going to go nowadays.
Do some modern day pranks, you know, steal people's Ozempic, that sort of stuff.
You know? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, switch their drugs around, make them go on a spree.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, give them ecstasy instead, so they can't stop eating. You know, think of some other way in which you can victimize people.
Just generally fuck with their mental health. That's hilarious nowadays.
Yeah, that's we've moved away from sexual shenanigans, and now
more it's psychological
gaslighting and torturing people that way. That's what we do now.
Yeah, the 70s and 80s, they're basically stuck with the Texas Chainsaw Handbook and gone, yeah, that's funny actually. Fuck with them mentally instead of physically showing off their body.
Yeah, that's what we do now. So Andy gets he gets a knife in the stomach as he's leaving the house.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, we get the hypnosis scene. And then we get them where two people go outside to a teepee, which is like such a random thing to go and fuck in, like a teepee. And it's you have to stand up inside of it as well. So I don't know what this teepee's for.
I don't know either, because they're in a sorority house. They're in a house. They have several rooms. She has her own room. So, and they're all very aware that they're off going to fuck. So it's not like they're hiding anything. You know what I mean? It's not like that. Oh, let's sneakily, like, I don't know, behind someone's back or something. It's like, no, everyone knows what you're doing. So why did you decide to go outside in a teepee? Why was that better than just banging in your bedroom? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, and
don't want to kink shame anyone if teepees are your thing.
And is it a specific sex teepee? You know, like, because what else could
everyone on camp. No one does it in the house. So they have to go out.
You have to go to the
and shag in the teepee.
Yeah. You have to go to the teepee.
You have to go into that cum covered. that teepee that's absolutely stained all over.
It's just so crusty. You can't get it open.
It's just solid. You can crack it with a hammer.
That's how you get out. They've got a hammer inside. You have to fight your way out. Yeah, it's an odd series of kills as well, because Bobby turns up and naturally, desecrates the sex TP.
Yeah, he slashes his way through it. They try to move around. Surprisingly, like when you've got those two, Tracy and Craig? Surprisingly, the two, because obviously Tracy's the more established and Craig is kind of just the dude that just showed up at the house. So I was pretty surprised that we get a little bit of towards a sex scene. We get some tit. We get naked ass. That's
one thing I was going to say. We
get the male form.
We get the male form. We were speaking. We want some side sack, some under sack. Some bit of shaft. We were talking about all of that, and we do actually. We are rewarded. We get to see some ass. We get to see it in motion. We get to see a bit of jiggle. We get to see him run. So everybody gets something.
We do. I actually thought this was going to be the rare horror that hung on. I thought we were going to get a bit of Shaft shown to us.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to get Tit and Shaft, and I was like, they're going for more of the male dot. Especially because, again, as I said, Tracy being the more established one, I didn't expect her to be the one that was going to die. I thought in classic style, Craig was going to get it in the back. You know what I mean?
Yes, of course. He gets it in the back.
She slashes his way in, stabs the guy who's on top in the back, bat as Tracy runs away. But no, there's such a kerfuffle is the word that came to my mind. I don't know why.
It's a weird proper kerfuffle,
Like, as they fight through, as they're getting it all slashed up, and Craig manages to move himself out as Bobby stabs down into Tracy's chest, and Tracy is stabbed. Yeah. And it shows it, and it shows the knife. It does show the knife going in, and it shows it in that way. A lot of these deaths, as I said in my recommended option for this film, was one thing that I do actually like. Actually, is even though this is a Halloween knockoff and things like that, I like the fact that we don't have an obvious mask kind of major costume. It doesn't really seem to care much about that. It is very much the guy's broken out and coming after it. So it's got the idea of Michael Myers, but it's not taken the whole, we need to put him in some other random costume. It is one of those things with slasher films and horrors where, because of Halloween and Friday the 13th and so on, and then back with Scream and stuff like that, the need to feel that we have to do the who done it, and we have to do a little bit of an idea of, we have to hide who it is. So we've got to kind of keep a bit of mystery about who it might be. So we've got to come up with some random ass costume. And let's be honest, in the grand schemes of them, there are some iconic ones, but there is a lot of shit out there.
like the clown, in House on Sorority Row.
Just completely misguided.
Yeah. And it's so odd. And
we've got another one in our sorority one that's coming up, where it kind of gets to the point where it kind of shows a costume. I'm not ruining that, so you'll have to keep listening. But it kind of gets to the point, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Why are they dressed like this? Just why? This is just dumb.
Oh, mate, have you ever watched Terror Train?
I haven't watched Terror Train, but I feel, is it the one with the guy?
It's the one with David Copperfield in it.
Yes, but the mask is the mask where it's got the dude with basically a big nose and curly hair mask,
and
like
glasses.
A weird. Yeah,
that's
who looks
one of them. They keep changing, which
he looks like the dude who used to be an astronomer in the UK, or in America. I think there was some dude who used to be a film critic, but for some reason he looks like that. Or, I'm not going to say the. Yeah, there's also some other people online I have seen him describe as a certain type or race of people that he looks like. That this is an inappropriate, why is this kind of thing?
Yeah, well, that does the whole thing where the killer keeps changing costume and keeps changing characters. And that one, I wasn't a fan of that. I thought that was dog shit, pure and simple dog shit that they just randomly thought, well, we need to do something. Let's put a 5-minute David Copperfield show in, because that will be really cool for people to watch that. But this, again, going back to Sorority House Massacre, with the killer not having a mask, again, took me back to Nightmare in a Damaged Brain, where we're very much seeing who the killer is. It's not shying away from it. It's not just it's not hiding from it. And I quite liked it. I think it was weird that he had a pair of Nikes on. I don't know if you noticed that in the scene where he escapes.
Yeah,
he's just got a pair of Nike trainers on. That really struck me as being odd, because I thought, if he's in a secure facility, how is he affording these? Where's he getting them from? Why hasn't he got white pim soles on, something like that?
Maybe we just don't see him when he kills someone and steals those Nikes. Maybe that's what he does. He just robs those off of them because he's just got shitty, I don't know, flip flops or whatever it's called. And he's just like, I need some power. I need that Nike 80s Nike energy to get me through this killing spree I'm going to go on tonight.
I need some he hasn't got the Air Jordans yet. He'd have been able to jump and run better if he had those. Probably would have been able to get into that window from the ground floor if he had Air Jordans, but I don't think they were out yet. So unfortunately, no luck.
Outside of the obviously the slight psychic link kind of thing, I don't know. I did find it slightly refreshing that it was just a straightforward. It's a killer. We don't like. He's a killer. He murdered when he was a child, and he's still going to continue to kill. There's something. Michael Myers' thing is the mask, but he's also the shape, and there's a mystery surrounding him here. There's not really too much of a mystery with Bobby. Not that we delve much into it, but he just literally is a dude who tried to murder the whole family when he was a kid. And yes, very, technically Halloween 2, technically, if we're talking about the motive here. But, but it's kind of I'm coming back because I'm finishing off my sister, who I now realize I've got a link in my head. Now that she's back in the house, I can see that she's returned. I need to go and finish the job. But, outside of that part, it is just a dude with a knife who goes around and just starts stabbing people up. And there was a certain element of it with the deaths in this film where I thought, actually, I kind of like it that it's kind of just a straightforward, we're seeing the knife getting stabbed into people. There's something scary about the fact that, in a reality, actually, this is kind of more take away the psychic link part. There is something about the deaths and the way that it goes about it. There's just very much like, here I am, I'm just starting to kill you kind of thing. There's no real showy offness about it. There's no kind of making it more than it is. It is just, here I am, I'm chasing you down. You've just got to survive me. Killer. Feels a bit more grounded in that weird way that I'm saying that about a psychic killer. But the psychic bit, once he's in the house, the psychic bit seems to very quickly go away anyway.
But it comes in kind of like little bits, because we get
to help her.
To help her. When he does come into the house and he finds her asleep on the sofa with that chap, he just fucking, stabs down and kills him nice and easy. I was thinking, if I'm going to die in a horror movie, I either want like a really brutal death because I want people to be like, oh, that was fucking class. Or if I'm actually going to be dying, then just kill me whilst I sleep, man. Don't worry.
I had to rewind this one because I thought he just stabbed into a pillow. So I was like, because I saw Beth move away, and then I saw the knife goes down, and because it just goes directly on top of the cloth of his shirt, I just thought he'd stabbed a pillow. So I'd obviously looked away for a moment and be like, here comes, and then look back and was like, he stabbed a pillow, but what happened to the other dude that was in the room? And I was like, I really back, because the pattern on his shirt just kind of looked like, I don't know, like a pillow pattern to me. So I was just like that. It's like, and because he stabs in and it's not like bloody, there's no blood pouring out or anything like that. It's just a knife goes into it. I was like, he missed her. She was trying to stab her and he stabbed a pillow. I was like, oh shit, no, stabbed the guy.
Yeah, you just can't. It's like natural camouflage.
I didn't really
make out what was going on with him.
There was no real build-up I didn't find with her and this dude anyway. It was literally like they're on a sofa and we're going to get this. But there was no this guy means anything to me or anyone cares about John, I believe it is. John, he told it. There. I mean, if anything, the only thing we got with him was obviously he tells the story of Beth's family murders. He tells about the massacre that happened in the house and all that kind of thing. That's his main role. So the fact that she then wants to bang the dude who's basically brought up her trauma is a bit weird.
that was his whole play,
Yeah.
I can traumatize her and then comfort her and then have sex with her on this sofa. That's my dastardly plan. 3 perfect stages that I can execute.
There is one thing, actually, we moved on to John, but I was going to say about, again, about Craig, the fact we get the naked, we don't have the naked woman running through the house to survive. We have the naked dude running through,
yes.
But I don't know why. There's something odd, again, about the fact that Craig survives in this way, because Craig being the dude surviving and not being Tracy, because we've already got a little bit of with Beth and Linda, Sarah, all those guys in the sorority, whereas these guys just kind of show up, we get a little story for a little while, and then it's basically to go into our separate rooms to get pounded.
They're just there to pound, man, which I respect.
When Craig runs into that room, with the girls like butt naked, and they, to be fair, don't actually seem that bothered about Mr. Butt Naked Craig. But when he
Yeah.
runs in about murders and stuff like that, it just straight away, like in my brain, going like, don't you think maybe this would seem a bit weird to you? Like, you're like, there's some dude outside who's just massacred this girl. It's like, in the 80s, I mean, that's basically like was OJ's way of trying to pretend that he didn't kill everyone. It's like, they were just banging and someone came in and just killed them. You know what I mean? Like, this dude's running into house butt naked with blood everywhere. It's like, what the fuck did you do during sex that you've literally just, I don't know, killed her, like ravaged her to death, like kind of thing. Like, but instead they're just like going with it, like, oh shit.
What year was the OJ trial?
I think that was 90. That was 90s, I think.
So there's actually
I'm a bit too early. Inspiration for him.
Yeah, there is a potential chance that OJ watched this film, and then if he did not or did not, if he did or did not, we cannot say. He was like, I'm going to do the Sorority House Massacre defense, where there was some other dude who did it, and I'm naked. Comfort me. But yeah, but they do that in this film, so I found it weird that he survived for that long and he actually got into the house. But then later, I was surprised that Linda managed to survive for a little bit, and then after we think Bobby's down, comes back and gets her. That feels like a very much like, well, Linda should be dead already. So they seem to like have people survive a little bit longer. I really like Craig's death though, where they barricade this room up, and then somehow they've got a safety ladder in case they need to get in and out of this room for whatever reason. And then they start to go down it one by one. And as Craig,
it's quite a suspenseful scene.
It's quite cool. I was actually like, this is quite cool, because it opens up and it's quite interesting with the weird kind of dream sequences or the nightmares and the memories bleeding back. And then I feel like once the actual killings start, it does get to be a little bit more kind of like self-contained slasher, because I think we move away from various, locations like the school, like the outside scenes, like the hardware store, the sanatorium. We come back to basically just the sorority house. So it does, for me, it starts to feel like it gets a bit rote and a bit slower. I know more's happening, people are dying, but it feels like it starts to lose a bit of its steam. And then this scene does happen, and I'm like, that's quite a cool scene where he kills Craig at the bottom, and then as I think Linda's climbing down, he starts climbing up after her.
Yeah, I think it's quite. I think once it actually gets into, because obviously, as you said, it weirdly, like, there is a tonal kind of problem here at times where it's kind of like, at first you feel like maybe you're getting a very different horror than what it becomes, where it becomes pretty straightforward kind of Halloween-ish kind of horror. Like, it becomes pretty much like the slashers getting through the house. They're doing whatever they can to survive, trying to avoid him. Like we've got here, barricading themselves, getting in the window, outside. They manage to get down, but then once more, not Bobby, sorry, Craig. Before he can climb up the ladder, things for Linda. He gets his death kind of coming at him. But I do think I think there's enough there that pushes you through that kind of time, because it's a pretty, short window of time in this film. So it moves well enough along that you kind of feel that there's enough urgency here to helping them survive. There is little lulls in time, like you said, just before then, and there's a little bit after this when they're kind of hiding away that lulls a little bit again, kind of thing. But that is where a little bit more of that original psychic stuff kind of starts to come back up as well.
Yeah, because you get the scene where I think they run out. They manage to get outside. They're slamming the window pane down onto Bobby's hands, and they manage to throw him down. I was about to say they managed to toss him off, but that's a completely different film. They managed to throw him down from the ledge onto the street, and then they think he's dead, so they run outside, and Bobby, manages to stab Sarah, which is quite brutal. I thought, like, He just
Yeah.
very quickly throws her down and stabs her repeatedly in the back or in the stomach. That was quite brutal.
On the stomach, like she's not. You're thinking that she's getting away with the rest of them,
Yeah.
kind of thing, and she just kind of falls down and very quickly is on her, kind of
And
thing.
then
She's done.
you get the scene that I thought they might have actually done, but they didn't really do, is when we are back in the sanitarium earlier on, we're introduced to this rather good-looking psychiatrist, and she's wearing like the long brown coat. I can't remember what she's wearing. I seem to have a pink suit in my mind, but I think that's because one of the girls is wearing a pink suit, and you're kind of led to think that, oh, maybe this has got to be this film's Loomis. They're trying to go on the female empowerment stuff that Slumber Party Massacre had. Maybe we're going to get like a female equivalent of Loomis, and then they just don't turn up again until they randomly go, well, maybe he's gone to his old house. And seems to.
I actually completely blanked on that little bit because it's such a minor part of the film where they're having these conversations and bringing each other like, what's happened with this guy, or how did this person, or what's the history behind this? When they put the two parts together, comes very much when the girls are barricade themselves down in the basement, haven't they? Down in the room.
It really feels like the teasing it that this search party is going to come in, and we're going to see Bobby Henkel, Bobby Smeckle, whatever, shot 6 times and then fall off a balcony. It really feels like we're going to lead up to that.
It feels like they are showing up any moment. Like you're watching the guy on the phone basically talk to him, saying like, well, so what actually happened with this? Like basically slowly, very slowly, in tiny, very short little scenes, we get the idea of him piecing together the puzzle of, wait, why would Bobby go here? Why would they go to that old sorority house? Oh my God, it's the childhood home. Of course, like that bit. But we also get that when Beth realizes what it is, because we get the scene I thought was quite cool with her flashback that she gets when they're in the basement is they see the picture of the girls.
Yes.
And I quite like this one, again, even though it is kind of Nightmare on Elm Street-ish, where she gets the flashback and we kind of get a little bit more of a clearer picture of what actually happened. And we see the flashes and we get the idea that actually, so she was one of the sisters, and it shows you through, which I think was quite a cool way of showing it. She's getting these still quite jumbled pictures of someone going through the house and murdering people. Is you start to see each sister blood forms on the picture, forming down one sister, down the other one, down the other, and then just as she sees the slash to the arm, and she looks at her arm, and then sees blood just trickle down the arm of her on the picture. Which I actually thought was quite an inventive and cool little scene, actually, to show the trauma coming to life just before, because they're basically in the basement being like, we need to get weapons. But that's basically the same period of time where we get the people putting things together going, oh my God, it's the childhood home, right? I guess we need to get there soonish, maybe.
And I love the idea that you're like, oh, we arrested this boy who killed his family. Where could he have gone? Where else does he know? Like kids only know the school, the home, and I genuinely don't know where else they would know. So where else is he got to go? He's not just going to go back to his school. I'm like, the first place you should check is his old home. But I'm not hunting a mass serial killer who was once a child, so I don't have to worry about that for now. The bit in the basement's good, where they have to, where they're kind of like looking for weapons, and they arm themselves, and we get like the psychic link where they're kind of barricading the door, and Bobby's slamming through it. And she senses just when he's about to, stab through, and then just about to come through. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I kind of wish that bit.
It's one of those elements. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think it's one of those elements that I think is actually sadly a bit underused. And I think this partially comes down to running time, of not giving some of these ideas enough time to flesh themselves out, that she can use that, because we get a fair amount, to be fair, in the first act of her noticing things, and as she starts to be in the house, she starts to do things like she can tell that he's on his way, in a way, like but she doesn't really understand who he is or what this means. But as I said, like once it gets to that, like into the second, into the third kind of area, we get a lot of slasher stuff, but I feel like a lot of this element goes away. And it's not until the end here that we start to get a little bit back where she's using it to be like, wait, he's coming here or he's coming down. I'm starting to understand how this works. But it is quite late in the game when we get that.
Yeah, definitely. But I like the idea of them arming themselves. Like Linda picks up a shovel and it's just like, let's batter this cunt. I love how that scene lays out where Bobby is so fixated on Beth that he's like cornering her. He's got the knife raised above himself, very Michael Myers, and Linda's just wailing on him with
a shovel,
just fucking clarting him. And then she does, when Beth's been cornered, she does knock him out and assumes that he's dead. Which at this point, I was like, I'm surprised that Linda is around for this. Usually, if you're looking at kind of slasher films, it's very much
final girl by now.
Final girl by now. Case in point, House on Sorority Row that we covered last week, which does just abruptly end, but it does play this out. The psychologist in that who's come to take Eric back, he ends up getting killed, and then we've got Mary Beth. She's got a double-barreled name. I can't remember it right now. Just her surviving. She manages to fight Eric off, and then he obviously comes back. It's teased that this is supposed to be playing out, and it always does seem to be. It's the final girl who has this moment where she thinks that she's killed the slasher, and we know that the slasher's coming back, and there's that tension of that. So for me, I'm like, they've just randomly got Linda here, which I like, but it does also, I don't know if you've ever seen this meme, and it's about Oppenheimer, and it's this whole thing where he says, now I've become the, creator of death, destroyer of worlds. And then it's like the other scientist who worked, me too, it just reminds me of Linda being like, I killed him. I'm the actual final girl in this situation.
Yeah, I did this as well.
I got here. I also did this. And then obviously Linda
with the way this has gone so far, with him getting knocked out the window, knocked down, things like that, where they've believed this, I'm surprised that they again believe. But obviously she's wailed on him pretty hard with the shovel, so they think he is dead. But still, like he's already managed to subvert that, like at least once properly, kind of thing, where they thought, oh, he's down. No, he's not. Down.
Throw him out.
And he's not down. And this is when you do get Linda's get stabbed. It doesn't really, because it ripped Linda, but at the same time I was still expecting Linda to be alive, because it didn't, it looked like she got stabbed and attacked and she's kind of thrown into the corner, but to me it looked like one of those, like in other horrors where she would have been like, oh, she is still alive, kind of thing. Like in my brain, I very much I believe that Linda did not fully die from that attack. Like I think she was afterwards found out, but we don't get enough time after this film anyway to find out if there was anything else to it. Like as a lot of them, we don't really get enough to find out fully if that was the case. But just the way it played out, just the way it looked like they were leaving it enough that you couldn't really tell, where she's kind of thrown against the wall, collapses down. Like it wasn't definitive enough for me to be like, she's definitely dead. Like it looked like one of those slasher ones where it's like, let's leave her alive for Sorority House Massacre 2, which I haven't seen. So I don't know.
I have just gone on the Sorority House Massacre 2 Wikipedia, and 5 women, Linda, Jessica, Kimberly, Suzanne, and Janie, buy a new sorority house. So I'm just going to assume and
we're just going to say that it's Linda without actually knowing it is.
Linda survived. Linda survived. That's our canon. But
that's what we're going with.
I also just found out that the officers are Officer Kruger and Officer Voorhees. So
I was going to say the cast list. I saw that one. I was going to throw that little nugget out there. There you go.
Yeah,
showing who they've made him been influenced by.
They have a little wink at the camera right at the end. But the
Linda
Bobby's
is not played by the same person, by the way, in the second one though. So
but
for horror films, you don't know.
They recast actors and actresses all the time, so same character, same character.
We're just going to definitely,
that's my headcanon. But then Bobby's death it's quite cool. You know, he's knocks her to the floor and he's crawling after her, and she says, you know, I'm not Laura anymore, because he's saying her name, Laura, and then she just stabs him through the kind of back of the neck, and the blade pokes out. Quite cool.
It is quite a cool little death. And again, I like the fact that it is quite a definitive kind of like, again, like the way that I felt that he was just like a guy who was hunting them down.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to this showdown, it turns out, he is just a guy, and she managed to overpower him after he's been beaten the shit out of anyway. But she managed to overpower him, and she gets that, and the way he's stabbed in the neck is quite cool. And it feels like he is definitively killed. I know we then get, again, a kind of a little kind of, I'm getting a link here, but
yeah, I think that's more what it is. It's the psychic link. I don't know whether that confirms that. I don't know. Maybe he's still able to haunt her. Maybe he is becoming Freddy Krueger, and he can haunt her in her nightmares. I think that's just me, clutching at straws.
Or she's just having nightmares because her brother is the one who's caused her nightmares. You know what I mean? This is just why. It just is.
Yeah, she watched her brother brutally kill her friends. So
I quite like the fact that she overcomes him and kills him, with a fairly little kind of brutal kind of death. And it feels fairly, at least it's not, like with House on Sorority Row, where he opens his eyes and you're like, well, that just leaves too many fucking questions about what happened next. That doesn't give me an ending, and now you're just done. Like,
it's just over.
At least this was like, he's dead and Beth is taken to hospital. She's still having nightmares, but that doesn't mean that he's necessarily alive. At least it's open-ended enough that, yes, they could have done a straightforward sequel maybe and made him alive, or made him Freddy Krueger for all we care. But it's also definitive enough that we can say, he's dead. The police finally fucking got there after working out which house, which took them way too fucking long. And, and she's taken to hospital, probably knowing horrors, a psychic facility, not a psychic facility, sorry, a mental facility to live out her days having nightmares about her brother back in the cell that he once stayed in.
I mean, a psychic facility.
But at least she can break out easily.
Yeah, definitely. It could be that Professor X hears about her psychic links and takes her to the X-Men Academy. That would technically be psychic hospital in a way. I tell you what I quite liked about the film. And, sometimes when we come up with features, we sometimes box ourselves into a corner or run into the risk of doing it. Like we come up with ideas first, and then we go through the practicalities of them. And when we came up with the sorority kind of feature for our summer slashers, I had this idea of like, actually maybe each one is going to just boil down to very much like a bunch of sorority girls being stalked by slasher, and that it's got to be kind of very samey. And House on Sorority Row, I think, was probably the one which has been maybe most stereotypical of what we expected, maybe most straight-laced. I like that whilst this one did stay relatively grounded in some elements, it had this weird nightmare, weird psychic link stuff. And I think the other two films that we've got coming up also have something about them that adds a little bit of flavor to them, so it doesn't end up to, just be something like this.
They're not all. I was gonna say I've watched all of this is probably the first time in a long time where I've actually ahead and watched all of the films in our season, and I can say that there's definitely a variety of difference between them. There's still sorority films, some of them they're still like those ones, but each one has its kind of thing. There's one of them that maybe plays more into kind of what you'd expect of the whole sorority, like all the sororities are going against each other kind of thing. Here's a bit of naughty boys, because neither Sorority Row or this has as much as I expected of like basically like anti-feminist, to be honest. Both of them were actually a bit more pro-feminist than I expected, to be honest, because I expected a very kind of basically like Animal House or something like that kind of thing, like those kind of films.
Voyeurism,
a bit more of that. One of them has a bit more of that in it, kind of thing, but also still feels like it tries some things that are very different and very very unexpected, maybe ahead of their time kind of thing, of what they were doing, even if it's, still a sorority film at the end of the day. And we've got, to be fair, we've also got another one that's very, I'd say, very different than all of these kind of ones. Maybe a little bit more higher, maybe deemed a little bit higher, like class of the standard sorority film.
Yeah.
So I'm teasing them in that way because we basically gave these two ones away.
Yes.
So the other two are completely question marks. If you're enjoying it, stay with our sorority summer slashers season.
Yeah, I think that's the best way of ending it then.
Yeah.
Like Seb said, if you're enjoying it so far, you want to know what those other two films we are, then make sure to pledge to the Cast Me to Hell sorority. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you are. Like I said before, about 50% of people who do return to the show aren't subscribed to it. And sometimes first-time listeners, if you've enjoyed it, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Leave us a lovely review because it really does help the show grow. We've got plenty more episodes coming for you. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. And as always, play us out, fellas.